Okay, great. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump in. So thanks to everyone who's on. I think we have more folks coming in, but maybe are getting their way home from work. But I'm Caroline Dwyer. I'm the chair of the Women in Planning Division, and I am very excited to be joined by an outstanding panel this evening to talk about all of the women in leadership roles here in APA. If you know me, you know that I love a theme. So we've have a very thematic presentation tonight, focused on all of these women urban legends who are doing the hard work and putting the time in to make our organization really exceptional.
Caroline, are we
Yeah,
meant to be
yes.
I'm sorry, are we meant to be seeing your PowerPoint or your
Oh, can
notes?
you not see it?
Yeah, we're
We
just
just
seeing your
see
notes page.
we're seeing your
No,
notes
don't
page.
look at that page. Thank
I
you.
yes, you're welcome.
Sorry about that. I am using an alternative setup here. Okay. Can you see it now, or is it still the same?
It's
Still the
still
same.
notes. It's still your like our
All right.
bios are up.
Hold on. Let's try this again. Thank you
Yes.
for not letting me talk over my notes.
Never leave you hanging.
Oh, hey, better? Yeah.
Yes.
All
Yay!
right. Okay, let me go through that again. So, if you know me, you know I love a theme. So, we have a very thematic presentation, which I hope you all enjoy as much as I did putting it together. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So, this evening, we have a really exceptional panel of women. We have several chapters in our table of contents to go through. We have Sue Schwartz, FAICP. Sue is the president of the American Planning Association. She has over 40 years of planning experience, a seat in the AICP College of Fellows, and is just one of six women or one of six people to hold both the leadership positions in AICP and or APA and the AICP Commission. Most recently, as Greensboro, North Carolina's planning director emeritus, I guess at this point.
Mhm.
Sue champions data-driven decision making, zoning reform. She's prioritized building professional resiliency and modernized community engagement. But whether leading APA's 40,000 member planners or serving on her local youth baseball board, Sue continues to hit home runs for great places. We also have Corinne Wendell, FAICP, which is exciting, one of our newest AICP members. Corinne is a visionary leader. She is the immediate past chair of APA's Women in Planning Division. She's the founder of Youth Engagement Planning, YEP, which is a nonprofit connecting the next generation of planners to our planning processes and the planning profession. Corinne's a newly minted member of the AICP College of Fellows. She's an award-winning international keynote speaker, and through initiatives like Girls Who Plan, or creating the first ever Girl Scout city planning patch, authoring the children's book, Ava Tanner, the city planner, Corinne works real hard to build bridges between the experts of planning today and our leaders of tomorrow. And she's really played a big role in transforming community engagement and the places that we call home. We also have Erin Purdue. Erin co-leads, oh goodness, now I'm going the wrong way on my slides. I should have, okay, no. All right. I am on an alternative setup here and it is giving me trouble. How about we just stay here? Erin co-leads Stantec's Midwest Region Planning Group. She's the president of the AICP Commission. She's been a practicing planner for nearly 30 years, working in communities from Key West, Florida to Valdez, Alaska, which is quite the span. In addition to her national leadership roles, Erin's been involved in APA Michigan and the Minnesota chapters. She served as a mentor. She served as a technical advisor for the AICP exam. She is a local and national speaker, delivering insights ranging from comprehensive planning to our evolving zoning codes and ethical planning practice. Erin is passionate about long-range planning, zoning reform, and bringing national best practices to communities of all sizes. And some of her professional priorities are making the abundance and opportunity of communities accessible to all. We also have Tippi Moreland, AICP. Tippi was born and raised in Hawaii and moved to Utah in 2010 after she completed her bachelor's degree at the University of Southern California. Tippi earned not just one master's in sociology from Brigham Young, but she also earned her master's in tourism administration from the George Washington University School of Business. She's currently the long-range senior planner for the city of Saratoga Springs. She's the past president of APA's Utah chapter and the current vice chair of APA's Chapter President's Council. Tippi found her passion for tourism planning when she was in Los Angeles and volunteering at the Thai Community Development Center when she was in grad school, she discovered travel hacking. If you want to know more about that, ask Tippi, because if you like to travel, she's your lady. She's been to 87 countries, 45 states, and all 7 continents, and working a full-time job, which is amazing. We also have Deborah Meyerson, AICP. Deborah spent the last 25 years shaping and implementing more equitable land use and housing policies. She's the founder of Meyerson Consulting. She's also a senior fellow at the Urban Land Institute's Terwilliger Center for Housing, and that is a research outfit bridging the gap between policy research and real-world community impact. Deborah is the chair of the APA Divisions Council, and she previously served as that body's secretary-treasurer. And from her base in Indiana, Deborah helps local governments and organizations build inclusive, thriving environments through expert policy analysis and innovative program design with a specialty in attainable housing solutions rooted in social justice and equity. We also have Brianne Kennedy, AICP. Brianne is a seasoned leader, a planner, and a change agent. She is also the founder of Thrive Consulting, which is a planning consulting firm dedicated to advancing economic and housing justice. Brianne's also a fearless entrepreneur, not just content with the one business. Brianne is living out my dream as a new co-owner of the Coven Richfield, which is a curated co-working event and meeting space. Brianne brings a unique blend of public sector and private consulting experience, which gives her a 360-degree perspective on community growth. She leverages that expertise at the helm of Thrive, helping local governments design and implement innovative policies and programs which make economic inclusion a reality for all. Last but not least, Brianne is also the Director of Membership for APA's Women in Planning Division. She is the past president of APA Minnesota and a past treasurer secretary of APA's Chapter's President's Council. We have Shanita McConis, AICP. Shanita is a federal infrastructure powerhouse with over 20 years of experience. She is the chair of APA's Federal Planning Division. In her role as a master planner for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer Headquarters, Shanita manages program execution for 11 regional planning support centers, bridging the gap between high-level policy and mission-critical installation readiness. Shanita's career spans from managing $70 million construction projects in Afghanistan to leading international planning efforts across Europe. She is also one of the rare triple threats here in planning. She holds her PE, her PMP, and her AICP. And through that, she combines engineering precision with strategic planning and project management. But whether she's leading multidisciplinary teams or coordinating with global ministries of defense, Shanita is ensuring resilience and success in highly complex military environments. And then last but not least, we have Julia Leib Johnston. Julia is a transformative leader, currently serving as the Director of Education Services for the California Association of Councils of Government, CalCog, and president of APA's California chapter. She has a career that spans state government and academia, including a key role as a deputy director in the California Governor's Office of Planning and Research. She's been at the forefront of integrating health, sustainability, and climate policy at the highest levels. She's also an award-winning mentor and the driving force behind the California Academy for Regional Leaders. empowering CalCog's 49 member agencies through cutting edge training. And with over 20 years of APA leadership experience, she is dedicated to cultivating the next generation of resilient and visionary planners. So that is my introduction to these outstanding ladies. And now I'm going to pass it off to each of them to share more about their own individual leadership journeys. And now my animations are going to work. So please hold. Okay, Sue, I'm going to pass it off to Sue Schwartz, FAICP.
Thank you, Caroline. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Women in Planning, for putting this together and holding up this amazing panel of women. Um, we were given a list of questions or interrogations on our leadership, but I wanted to start with the couple of things of how did I get here? 45 years later, it's an amazing journey as I look back on it. I'll talk about the leadership side. The planning side, I didn't start out in planning. I am an accidental planner like a lot of us are, and fell into it. And I really came to fall in love and am profoundly grateful that I found not just my profession, but my vocation. So part of my leadership journey comes from my deep love for what we do and the impact that we have in our communities. But how I got started, literally, I wrote an article for the chapter newsletter about my region. I was working in Hickory, North Carolina, kind of in the foothills, and no one seemed to know the different things, planning challenges we were doing and we were dressing, and so I got annoyed and started writing, and then I started talking to other people in the region and writing about their projects, and just that was my way in. And worked, met people at the chapter and the conference, and in North Carolina at the time, if you passed your AICP exam, you were automatically added to the professional development committee, and because that committee was charged with um, setting up the exam preparation, which then was in person and multiple, getting the speakers, locations, all that good stuff. But we did, that particular group just gelled so well. We created a couple other projects, but that was literally how I started getting involved in the chapter, and that led to a vice president of chapter development and then the chapter president. The leap into the national level was nothing I anticipated or set my sights on. I always thought you had to have special, you had to be special and different. Obviously, everybody else knew the secret. I didn't. That was my assumption walking in. But when I was the chapter president, and this interesting enigma, the chapter president's council, where we all got each other, and it was just a wonderful, I just loved it. I love CPC. And I was asked to run for vice chair. And I thought, oh my goodness, a national position, little old me. Oh my goodness, I can't possibly. And a very dear friend, while I was prattling on that I was just couldn't believe I was being asked to run for this office, said, you have to make a decision. Do you want the job, or do you want the position? Meaning you can, like, hey, do the wave and take that title and elevate your resume, or you can dig in and do the work and make a difference. And that's kind of been my North Star ever since. I love CPC. I really enjoyed working at that level and, having a piece. I didn't think about, this is the part where I think I would just ask those of us who are in leadership positions to think about doing this. I never even considered it. Their position came open in Region 2 for AICP Commission, and Mark Henshaw, who was a AICP commissioner out of Seattle, said to me, came to me and said, you should think about running for the commission. I was like, oh, I can't possibly do that. I'm not connected. Nobody knows me. I don't have all these other things. And it was like, no, you really, I really think you should do this. And, yes, and being able to put my name out there, having someone say, I see, I'm here and I can see you here, to my 35 or 36-year-old self was very important. It was, I'm not blessed with the greatest self-confidence on the planet at the time. And having someone say, no, you're as good or even better than some of the folks that are here. You will make a difference. And I will say when it was kind of magical, that commission got elected. Roger Hendricks was the AICP president, and we just all, the commission, we all got along and we had this sense of mission. That's one of the things that I think makes the commission special. You're very focused. You're focused on the profession. You're focused on professional ethics. You're focused on education. Those, and you work on the credentialing and the accreditation and fund that. So you have very specific mission, but it was, there wasn't a lot of, we were all of, it's not that we didn't disagree, but we were all of like minds. And so we really, we just enjoyed each other's company. It was great. Running for AICP president took a little convincing. Um, and my first position statement, I I sent it to a friend to read, and their response was, "Are you trying to tank this thing? You're a little too humble. What are you doing? You need to, show your vision, show the passion, show the things that you talk about that gets you excited." And so, that presidency was eventful. That is when certification maintenance came to be. We had argued as an organization for almost 30 years about this, and it was back and forth. And we finally had been a membership survey, and one of the questions was, would you support mandatory continuing education? So Erin may talk about this later, but you can change the name from CM anytime. That was a Hail Mary because the original name was Maintenance of Certification, or MOC, which um, I jumped on. And said, no, we can't call it that. But at that time, the results of that survey wasn't that everybody said, oh, yes, we've got to. But the younger demographic, our younger members were by far almost 3 to 1. We want this. And it was very clear it's going to be, well, your organization, as I look around the gallery on the Zoom call, that, and there were predictions of gloom, doom, and failure. We were going to lose tremendous membership. And I think we did lose 10% of the AICP members initially, but then it grew. So part of my story is about one, even if you're not quite, there is no magic formula. There is no magic, other people know stuff that you don't know. Two, if you're interested, talk to people. Just ask what it's like. Oh, I don't have the time. I don't either. My son was very little when I started all this mess, and okay, he's an attorney now. He didn't grow up to be a planner, but he was around the planners a lot and got to have had interesting, Uncle Mitch, Uncle Bruce Knight, had a lot of interesting, Aunt Joanne Garnett had a lot of support along the way. But I go back to three things. Running for the APA presidency, I wasn't even looking at that. I had thought about it earlier, but it came back to the idea of service for my profession, service for the organization that helped me be a better planner. I got exposed to so many different things that I never would just being a planner in Greensboro, and just so many wonderful people who just opened my mind about how to look at things and where to find resources. So there was this last chance, and last of all, that we are to be the resource for our members. That's why you join a professional association. And I wanted to emphasize that role, and then the national elections changed all that, and we really needed to be we continue to evolve of what do we need to be as we move forward. So I guess I don't know, Caroline, if you got a timer on me or something, but I just wanted the key points are one. If you wrote my bio, and I've seen my bio and made it sound so gilded, like there were no bumps along the way. There are bumps. Everybody's got bumps. There are challenges, and you've got other roles besides being a planner and being a leader, being in leadership. But you sit there and think through, and I go back to my friend's admonishment. Do you want the position? And I have known many people who wanted this, or do you want the work? Do you want the job? And I love the job. Even when it makes me crazy, I absolutely love it. I've loved just about every position I've had in APA because wasn't about me. It's about my fellow planners and what we can do to make their jobs easier, their environments easier. How can we support one another in lots of different ways? So if you're interested, I am very approachable. I'm 6 feet tall. You can't miss me at the national conference. You can find me. No, I won't be wearing my Eagles jersey this year. They lost. But they, I'm sure you can find me, or you can find my email online. And if you just want to set up a time to talk because you're curious about all this and how do you get involved more in the organization, please do. I think it's one of the greatest gifts we as women, we as leaders can give back, but supporting women in our profession is probably the highest calling we've got. So, Caroline, did that cover? Or did I go over my time?
No,
Other
you're
than,
perfect. Thank you so much. That was excellent. Great lessons to carry forward. So thank you so much, Sue. Next we have Corinne.
Yes, thank you, Caroline. And I don't know how anyone's going to follow Sue, so I feel like we should just wrap for the for the evening. Because I mean, if you want to meet a more approachable person, like go see Sue. Like Sue is one of those people that is like just a beacon of all things planning and a delight. So I'm so proud to be in this group with all of you. And to celebrate, Women's History Month too is so important, and uplifting and supporting women in our profession is very profound in what we all do. I think we all have that common thread, which is amazing. But as Caroline mentioned, I'm, Corinne Wendell. I'm in the Twin City area. Actually, Brianne and Aaron and I floated having a joint mini conference together because we're all in Minnesota. We were like, we'll be on the call together and you'll just see all three faces. But we love, being able to have that cohort here in Minnesota to be able to kind of really have another layer of partnership and another layer of relationship outside of, all the things we do in APA. So I run a nonprofit called YEP. It teaches kids about urban planning, civic engagement. As of June 2024, left my very safe and secure job at the city, and after 20 years in the public sector, and made the leap to do my nonprofit full time and start a kind of side LLC called Future Focus Strategies. And so the last almost 2 years has been really amazing, and another like growth, opportunity. At that point, I'm like, oh, I've like grown, I've come along the way, I think I can do this. And then there you go, you're going to grow again, the last 2 years. And so I've been able to, do a lot of really great planning work, especially around youth and youth voices, which is where my heart is. I have a heart for small cities and I have a heart for kiddos. It's kind of how I run. And my APA leadership role came sort of uh, by way of an accident, I think also. I was actually at the National Planning Conference in Seattle, and I had just met Brianne. It was 2015. We randomly, since we're in Minnesota, but then we go to Seattle and we randomly run into each other at the grocery or at the corner store across the street from the hotel at MPC. And we're like, oh, I feel like I know you. And she was APA Minnesota chapter president at the time and recognized her. And she's like, oh, well, I'm in the Women in Planning division. Do you want to come to the happy hour? And I'm like, yes, that sounds great. And my son was about to be born. We adopted him in May 2015. And so it was like March. So it was a couple months before that time in my life. So I was mid-career and went to this happy hour, and that's all she wrote because I fell in love with this division, quickly became the director of programs, and sat on the executive committee after that, was elected for chair, and served 2 terms as chair of the organization. And that has been like the true delight and just an amazing experience for me professionally, personally. It being with other amazing, strong women planners has been everything for my career. All the moves I make, all the information I get, all the resources that I look for, they stem all from amazing women. And I cannot be more thankful for all of the relationships and partnerships that I've had. And at the time, our division was about 100 people. And through a lot of grit and hard work and, just beating the drum, we've been able to grow the division to its highest number yet today. And Caroline has really taken another like immense step forward in carrying that torch. And similar to Sue, like we feel like we're the torch bearers, like we're lighting the flame, and then we're going to pass it to that next person. And we always say like there's no limited amount of success. Like there's so much success for everyone, and everyone's invited to the table. And we don't want it to be hard for the next person. We wanted it to be easy. We're going to do the hard things, and then we're going to pass that along and make it a little bit easier for that next person. And that's the attitude that we have in the division. And that drives every single yes that I've ever said to AIC or to AICP and APA. I have like a laundry list of things that I've said yes to volunteering for. I'll spare you and the big list. But everything from, helping with the equity CM that came along and that committee to being a part of reviewing, session proposals, to becoming a mentor, to being a planning accreditation board, a PAB site visitor. That was actually a surprising like favorite that I have where I go to universities and I make sure that they're following their accreditation and they get approved for the next, hopefully 3, 5, 7 years. So I visited 2 campuses thus far. Being a part of contributing to the AICP exam, being on the membership committee, and being a part of Foresight, being a part of the change ambassadors. There's so many opportunities to plug into APA. And as part of the exec committee for women in planning, I was just invited into more spaces and places that were really rewarding. And that really just became just the foundation for, everything in the leadership part of APA. And so just being a part of that kind of a group of really amazing women just continued my efforts to continue volunteering with APA. And so I think what surprised me about APA leadership for that question is that it's it's amazing how immense the organization is. Sometimes you just think of like greater APA as, just this thing. I actually didn't even know. I needed like a organizational tree to like show me what was going on. Like, oh, I didn't know this was this, kind of cohort. And then over here they have, AICP commission and they kind of dictate these things. So it was really a learning, adventure to like understand and really appreciate the depths of APA and all that it encompasses. And the 40,000 members, that it has. So it is immense. And so that's been really surprising about learning more about, being a leader in APA. And I think in everything that I've done as a planner, it just helped me grow in ways that I never imagined, and having really great success in not only being a public sector planner, but also turning into, nonprofit sector and being able to lean on APA and lean on others who have done this before me and being able to be mentored by them and have those relationships and friendships with all those amazing planners. I would say if anyone is interested in, APA leadership, I would really encourage you to go through your chapter or go through your division to start kind of learning what that means and volunteering for maybe smaller events or smaller programs, and then maybe getting that first committee chair position and kind of finding your way and what suits you. Because I feel like everyone here, we all have different interests and we all come from different backgrounds and we all can become a planner. That's the beauty of our profession. And so there is a way for you to be a leader in APA with whatever kind of background you have or interest. I think that's also amazing. There's a place for everyone at the APA leadership table. And so that's been really fun to be able to discover other people, having these amazing leadership positions and doing the work that they do and being rock stars at it. And maybe I don't have any future APA leadership plans. I'm past chair right now. I support and love the division and will continue to do so. Been able to do some amazing, great things within the division and with, the greater APA umbrella. And so I would just encourage everyone here to be able to kind of press into their strengths and, what they're led by and what their purpose is. And, there's a place for you at, being an APA leader. So I think I'll close with that and pass it on to my very fine friend, Erin gets to go next.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. Erin.
I don't need to make the rookie mistake of not unmuting myself. Hi,
Nailed it.
everybody. So, as Corinne mentioned, I am here in the Twin Cities with my good friend Brianne also. I have been in the planning field a long time, most of it in the consulting world. Interesting. I'm going to share a little bit about how my career evolved because it's relevant to my leadership journey too. Um, I started out in the public sector, like I think most planners do, out of graduate school. I worked for a public planning agency in the same town where I graduated, Ann Arbor, Michigan. So I spent the first almost 20 years of my career in Michigan. Um, and then after several years, the direction of my organization changed, and I was kind of wondering if I had a future there, if they were going to be doing the work that I wanted to do. And so when I was young and foolish, I started my own consulting business. Um, kind of asked myself, and of course I talked to a lot of people and thought a lot about it, and the the mantra that I told myself was kind of, well, why not? Why shouldn't I do this? Why not me? I can be a planning consultant just like all of these other old white guys in Michigan. What do they know that I don't, right? So I did that for about 12 years, took on another woman as a business partner. Um, and it was a wonderful way to build my network in Michigan. And that's kind of how I entered the APA circle. While I was in Michigan, my business partner and I did a lot of teaching of local planning officials in Michigan. So that was through our chapter. So we kind of hit the circuit and did a lot of education on how to be a planning commissioner and things like that. We taught classes and wrote a manual on public engagement back then. And so that was sort of how I got involved with APA, like my very first time. So I was mid-career trying to meet new people and broaden my network. And so it was a great, non-elected thing to do to get started. Um, so I did a lot of that while I was in Michigan. Eventually, I did make my way to Minnesota in the Twin Cities, and I think how I got involved with the state chapter in Minnesota was actually through Brianne too. So Brianne, you're like the the gatherer of great people into APA. I actually took a job at a consulting firm and worked with Brianne when I moved to Minnesota. She was the chapter president at the time and encouraged me to get involved with the Minnesota State chapter. So I ended up serving on the board for quite a few years. I was treasurer of the board. And while I was working with the state chapter, I can't actually remember how I got roped into this, but I was asked to be at the AICP commission has a lot of uh, committees, and as part of those committees, a lot of task forces. So we do a lot of work on the AICP commission. And at the time, they needed volunteers to work on the AICP exam, writing questions and things like that. So I volunteered, and that is the first time I was involved with national APA. It was a lot of work, but I really enjoyed like actually having a role in the exam that certifies a lot of us. And so then I continued to be a part of AICP committees for a while because I really enjoyed that work. Um, at one point, there was a woman who was involved with our state chapter in Minnesota who was on the nominating committee for AICP. And she approached me and said, ever thought about running for commission? So this is kind of a little bit like Sue's story. I was like, what? No, I never thought of that. Um, and so, she, kept sort of prodding me, and I'm reading the job description, and I thought, yeah, that would be cool. Why not me? What the heck? Um, so I put my name in the hat and ended up on the AICP commission for one term, 4 years. I really loved that. And then I decided to run for president. A lot of people, kind of the tradition to working your way to AICP president is to serve 2 terms on the commission, and then if you want to run for president. And I even had a one of my close friends on the commission actually kind of told me that, like, when I said I was thinking about running for president, she was like, "Oh, why don't you run for another term and then maybe run for president?" And I just kind of thought about it, and I had some ideas that I really wanted to work on to improve AICP, improve the exam, improve the process for getting certification, improve FAICP. And so I said, nah, I'm not going to wait. Like, why should I wait? Why not me? Why not now? So I went ahead and ran for president, and here I am. Um, it's been an amazing experience. You know, getting to that question of what surprised me about AICP leadership or APA leadership in general. Um, I think the thing that surprised me the most is how much work goes into everything that APA does. I mean, obviously, APA has a great staff, they do a lot of work, but the volunteer leaders, um, it's a huge lift to educate yourself on issues, make decisions, and actually, work on committees and do the work. There's a lot of work that you do yourself as a volunteer. But it just feels really good to do something that helps other planners. It helps the reputation and the visibility of the profession, the work that we do as volunteers. Um, I have met a lot of amazing people. I think we've all mentioned that so far, and I'm sure others will. But getting to connect with other women in leadership has been really helped me as a woman planner and as a leader in APA, and just as a leader in various things in my life. It's just been really amazing to get the support and the partnership that I feel with other volunteers. Um, so that's one of the things that's really helped me grow as a planner, and as a person, just in general. I know there's a lot of it does kind of seem like a black box, if you will, like, well, how do you break into this circle that is APA leadership? And I think a great way to just kind of get your feet wet and test things out is to volunteer for a committee or a task force. So when that call for volunteers comes out, as it does every year, really take a look at those job descriptions and I think both APA and AICP are always looking for interested people with different perspectives from different geographies, with different backgrounds. And I mean, we just can't get enough people. So I would encourage you to maybe take a volunteer position that had, with a subject matter that really interests you. The other thing I would say is, you don't have to wait to be asked. I think a lot of us did because we just hadn't even thought about it. But if you're listening, if you're here tonight or you're watching the recording of this webinar, you must already be interested. So you don't have to wait for somebody to ask you to consider something. Take a look at the opportunities and, ask yourself, why not? Right? So I think I'd like to leave it there.
Thank you so much, Erin. Okay, next up is Tippy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tippy Moreland. I'm based just south of Salt Lake City in Utah. Just to piggyback off of what Erin was just talking about, I want to say that showing up seems to be the theme for me with getting any of the leadership positions I've had in APA, whether it's through a division, a chapter, or national leadership. And I wouldn't say it's entirely by accident because you kind of have to show up and express interest in being a volunteer in order to get a position and to show that you have the skills and that you have the interest. But showing up is the most important thing, I think, to letting people know that you're there and you're willing. So I started my career, I think I just hit around the mid-career stage or mid-level stage of my career recently. I started in 2013 on the tails of the recession, and I had gone to my first planning conference. Well, my first one was in 2010, and college had sent me, so I actually was lucky to get funded by USC to attend the New Orleans conference, and that was really amazing to me. Where I volunteered, so I got free registration at NPC, and USC paid for my hotel and my flight. So I went by myself as an undergrad planning student and just made friends with everybody there. And I was taken under the wings of a group of students from University of Arizona. They're all grad students, but I'm still close with a lot of them to this day. And that really made an impression on me that APA really is like the professional organization for planners, and I need to be involved, whatever that means, whatever that looks like. So when I started working as a professional planner around 2013, I had my chance to come to NPC in 2016 in Phoenix. That was the first time work had paid for me to attend a conference, and I had attended the social and a couple of sessions put on by the international division. And I do remember that social was hosted jointly with the Women in Planning division. So I joined both divisions at the same time. But the international division was really something that interested me because I was traveling a lot at that point in my life. I think I was calculating it out. Travel hacking, finding cheap flights had become just my side passion. I have been lucky to always work for a 4-10 work schedule. So in Utah, I've been kind of grandfathered into this, so not everybody has this, but during the recession, everybody had closed on Fridays. So I worked 4 days a week, 10-hour days, and I'm still lucky to have that to this day. And I really took advantage of that, where I would like fly out on Thursday night, come back Monday morning, go straight to work, find $200 tickets to Paris, like things like that. So I was really interested in travel, and I was also really interested in international planning because I didn't intend to go into municipal planning where I am. I'm the long range planner for the fastest growing city in the state of Utah at the moment. But I originally wanted to go into international development and nonprofit work. Again, graduating during the recession, that really wasn't possible, but I was still interested in like, how do you even do international planning? So I talked to some of the leaders of the international division, So Tim Van Epp was the chair at the time, and I remember talking to him saying, like, how do I get a career in this, or how do I build this into my life? And he said, you should join our division. And then he emailed me, we exchanged contact info, and he emailed me a couple months later saying, hey, we need someone to take minutes for our meetings. And hey, we actually need someone to fill in this spot. Someone just, dropped out of our committee, our executive committee, as the membership coordinator. So really quickly, just by, again, showing interest and showing up, I got a leadership role with the international division. So I served as membership coordinator from 2016 to 2018. And and then I also got recruited by their nomination committee to run for vice chair for special projects. So then I spent a couple years as the vice chair of special projects for the international division. And from there, I've stayed involved with the international division, but that was my first step into APA leadership. Because I had been getting really involved with APA, when I was taking my AICP exam, I also set up a study group in APA for APA's Utah chapter. We didn't have one at the time, but I had a lot of colleagues around the state that were taking the exam at the same time. So we hosted our own in-person study groups. And I got invited by the PDO for the Utah chapter to continue doing that. So for 5 years, we hosted 2 10-week sessions a year that I led with the professor that was in charge. So because of that, also the Utah chapter knew who I was and asked me my opinions on, certain leadership elements of that I could take from my division's experience and bring it into the chapters. I was invited to a couple of leadership meetings here and there. So the chapter president who was serving just before me, so I was Utah chapter president from 2023 to 24. She wasn't running for re-election. She was retiring, and the vice chair had just disappeared. Or the vice president of Utah. He got a director job and couldn't attend meetings anymore. And it was toward the end of the year. So he wasn't running for Utah chapter president. And the past president at the time, Ted Knowlton, who also just got FAICP this year, he called me up. I didn't know him that well, and he just said, hey, I think you'd be really a great candidate for chapter president. I didn't know what to do because I hadn't really been involved with the Utah chapter outside of study groups. I was interested in becoming chapter president eventually in my career, but at that point I had only been a planner for about 10 years, or I guess 9 years during the election. So I was still a really, really young planner. But his confidence in me really helped me put forth a nomination for myself, and I got it. It was a competitive nomination cycle as well. I recruited, some of you may know Megan Booth from the leadership in the Women in Planning division, and she really helped me because I said, if I'm running for president, I'll only do it if you run for vice president. So you kind of build these friendships, throughout your planning groups. And again, showing up and networking and using your network is really, really something that builds your leadership resume, I guess. And it's something that, I've relied on Megan for so much throughout my career, or throughout my leadership, both in the chapter and even in other divisions. Like, we share ideas, and we share a lot of, we bounce ideas and Q&A off each other a lot in terms of APA and leadership service. But because I showed up for the Utah chapter presidency, I was only ever planning on doing 1 term, and I did. I just did 1 term as chapter president, and I just wanted to see what it was, and maybe I'll come back to it at another time. The international division reached out to me, and they said, hey, did you know, as chapter president, you only have 2 years to run for the CPC board? And again, this was something I thought maybe I'd do it in 5 or 10 years. But the Chapter President's Council is something where you only qualify to run for leadership if you're a current president or an immediate past president. So that's just, if you do 1 term, that's 2 cycles, 2 election cycles. And so with their encouragement, again, with the network that I've built, and not knowing anybody really in leadership for the Chapter President's Council except for Julia, who is my leadership circle lead. So in the Chapter President's Council, we have little groups of chapters that meet monthly in what's called a leadership circle. I only knew Julia. I just threw my name in for every single position. I'm like, I don't even know what I want to do. I just want to be here and I want to be involved. So again, showing up, not exactly knowing what I'm doing, knowing I'm still young, and I just want to be involved and I don't want to miss the boat. Turns out I was slated against Julia for a CPC chair, the Chapter President's Council chair, in that election. Of course, Julia won. But because I was so enthusiastic about just wanting to be involved, I was able to get appointed to the divisions liaison for under Julia's leadership. So Julia noticed me and she noticed my enthusiasm, and again, showing up is something that really got me noticed and got me involved. And divisions liaison was perfect. I didn't even know that was a position on the CPC board because I have so much experience with divisions, both in international division leadership, and eventually I became a member of the Asian Pacific Islander Interest Group Steering Committee. It's not quite a division yet, but I've been on the steering committee from the start. And for a couple of years, I served as their director of membership as well. So I've dabbled here and there. But divisions liaison was the perfect foot in the door to national leadership for me with APA. And so from there, I ran for vice chair, and that's where I am today. I really want to emphasize that, especially for early to mid-career development, if you feel kind of too young to be in national leadership or APA leadership in any capacity, this is something I've found very, very valuable in my career, my personal and professional development, in terms of getting leadership development at all. So again, I work in Utah, and for Women's History Month, everyone's posting the stats, right? And Utah, again, for I think like the 11th or 12th year in a row, ranked 50th for women in the workplace and women's equality. And it's something that, it's not a constant in my career, but it is something that I feel like I'm up against pretty often, as a woman, as an Asian American woman, as a millennial in the workplace, getting a later start just because of the recession and everything. I know that working in a place, especially where cities are smaller, where planning departments are 2 or 3 people with a director, there are limited opportunities to move up. There are limited opportunities for leadership development. You'd be lucky if your city has a leadership program or your region. And I knew that, and I didn't expect, my city or my employer to constantly be responsible for my professional development. So it's something I found extremely valuable, where if you participate in APA leadership, you do get some benefits, as volunteers, that, you can attend state conferences for free if you're in leadership in the Utah chapter. As part of the Chapter President's Council, we do get our registration and travel covered to the National Planning Conference, since we lead a lot of the leadership meetings there. And while those are benefits, that I get individually because I can attend the events and get CM credit, it also allows me to get leadership training that we have in person and both online, and now post-COVID, that I wouldn't be getting from my employer. So I think that's the most valuable thing that I get from APA leadership. And then the networking also with incredible, especially women in leadership, that have really been unofficial mentors to me, that I've gotten a lot of really great career advice, a lot of really great direction on where I want my career to go. In the public sector, if you stay too long, you kind of get pigeonholed. Like, you can't really make a move to the private sector if you don't go early very easily, unless you have a specialized like design or transportation planning, like very niche skill. And so making decisions about my career, about like little turns to make, and things that are on the personal side of my professional development, I found very valuable also from building this network that I've had in APA leadership. Okay, and one last thing I wanted to touch on actually was around the time that I ran for national leadership with the Chapter President's Council, um, and for a Utah chapter president, that was within a year of each other. I didn't feel super qualified to speak up and represent the groups that I'm a part of. So one of that being like, okay, how do I represent all Utah planners when I'm still kind of new in my career? But also, it was kind of during COVID and at the end of the COVID period, and being half Asian, I never really felt fully qualified to represent, the Asian community. And then being Thai, I'm my mom's from Thailand, so I do have the immigrant experience, the immigrant child experience, where my mom is an immigrant, but I don't look very Thai. I don't speak Thai fluently. So growing up in Hawaii, I was always reminded of that. But also in Utah, it's 50-50 if someone's gonna know if I'm Asian American or not, which it doesn't matter. But in the early part of my career, that really impacted my view of myself and whether I should speak up. But during COVID, with the Stop Asian Hate campaigns and everything that was happening in the world at that time, I really started to feel like I had to speak up. Um, and it was something that was very uncomfortable for me, but something I really leaned into hard and felt like I had to do. And I think that was also something that gave me courage, and that's a huge part of my story as to why I stepped up to run for chapter president and the CPC board, because that was all happening around the same time. And it's not like a very public, element of my story, but I feel like that was something that really drove me to understand that, I am Asian American and I am a woman planner, millennial planner in Utah. Like, all these parts of me matter. And when I show up, it's not for nothing. And that's something that I've learned too after showing up and being in these roles. People do care, and it does make a difference. So, and I have gotten messages from other young planners, especially throughout the state when I was chapter president, saying, hey, now that I see you in leadership, I want to get involved. And I don't think that happened in Utah before. So showing up again in that way was something that was really important to my story. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Tippy. Okay, up next is Deborah.
Thank you. Well, my name is Deborah Meyerson. I'm based in Bloomington, Indiana, which is southern Indiana. And I've had my own consulting firm since I basically came to Bloomington, which was in 2003. And we'd moved there from Washington, D.C. And I'd been involved with the National Capital Area chapter a little bit. I'd come there right out of grad school, and we'd been there for 6 years. But when we got to Bloomington, which is where my spouse took a tenure track position at Indiana University, I had to decide what I was going to do. I loved what I was doing in DC, but it was time to take a turn for his path. And so I still had a lot of contacts in DC. And so I decided, okay, I can take consulting with me. And that's what I did. I didn't know that it was going to be a long-term thing, but that's what it turned out to be. But I didn't know much about running a business, right? I knew what it was to be a planner. I'd worked primarily for nonprofits and associations. So I haven't actually done public sector except as a consultant to serve the public client. But I needed to understand what I was doing, and it took me a little while to realize there was a private practice division in APA. And that was a perfect outlet for me to figure out what I was doing. And there are terrific people in the private practice division, and it just came that the place I needed to be to learn things and to gain community. Because not only had I moved to a new city and a new state, and trying to figure out the next stage of my career, I was in my early 30s at the time. But I didn't, even if I was starting my own business, I was starting as a sole proprietor, and I am still a sole proprietor. So it wasn't like I had, a community around me to figure out how to start my business. So the private practice division was terrific, became a great resource, and just in addition to what I could get from the division, I wanted to think of how I could give back. And I started with, again, this is the early 2000s, so I started a listserv for so that private practice members could communicate with each other and reach out. Because again, the thing about divisions is that they have a bond through their common interest of whatever division it is, whether it's private practice or international or women in planning or the 25 divisions that we have plus interest groups. Um, but they're geographically spread out in most cases. And so the listserv was a way to create connections. And again, it was just kind of participating and seeing opportunities where they came up. And it was more just filling the gap when it existed so that doing the listserv and then, election cycle comes up and like, hey, I'll run for vice chair. And then the chair had to leave midterm. So step into being chair and then run for chair and serve 2 terms as chair. And, so now kind of then leading the way to divisions council, executive committee, which again, kind of parallel to the chapter's president's council, does the administrative work for the divisions, and so this is my first term now as chair of the divisions council, and have met many of you as part of that intersection. Whether again, so that is one thing with serving in APA leadership. There's always the next thing that you can do if you wish to, and even once you serve in one role, you will rapidly be pulled into other committees and directions. And you do have to, decide how you want that to shape your space, right? Sometimes it's like, great, I'll take all I can get. And sometimes it's like, you know what? This is what I'm doing, and I wanted to be the best at what I can do in this, but I can't take on other things. But that's where bringing other people in is a great way to build a community and to share the opportunities that exist. So, um, I think that what surprised me about APA leadership was really just the opportunity for community that I didn't know existed. Uh, Again, I understood what it was to have a professional association and to go to conferences, whether chapter or national, and to get professional development. I understood that. But maybe because once again, I needed that community by starting on my own in Southern Indiana, then I realized that was the other potential that I hadn't maybe fully grasped previously. And and because perhaps I've been so engrossed with divisions, I have to actually serve some chapter leadership too. I did with Southern Indiana representative for a little while. Again, somebody walked up and said, "Hey, would you like to run?" Like, okay, sure. um, but I really find divisions for me have cultivated that sense of belonging, right? Of not just this is my profession, this is what I do, but what is my purpose and why am I here? And so, sometimes our jobs can fulfill those questions, but not always. And so it's kind of like finding the professional community of choice as opposed to just the one that pays your bills. Again, and sometimes you're lucky and you can get both in one place. But it's also nice to have other outlets, and I feel like APA has really provided that for me. Um, I think it is, if you're so inclined, really very easy to get involved with APA. Again, it's more just knowing where the opportunities exist, and certainly, again, I've heard been wonderful to hear from others who were invited in, but also I appreciate the encouragement, and I'm going to share that myself of put yourself out there. It doesn't have to be super huge ambitious. It's just again, find out what you want and where you'd like to be, and then look for where that exists. And talk to people. You may not know all the opportunities that exist or how to get in, and people are more than happy within APA who are currently in leadership to share. And that's, I think, why it's awesome to have this webinar today and to hear from all of you. People are more than happy to share their experience and to bring you in. It's not meant to be exclusive at all. And so you can create your own opportunity. So the thing that I really enjoyed about being part of private practice was, again, I came in looking for outlets. And one of the things we were able to do while I was with the division's executive committee was we produced the private practice planning handbook to say, okay, everybody's been in that role at some point or another, especially the small proprietors. How do I learn what I want to do? So if you don't have it, you create it. And so we created the private practice planning handbook. Came out in 2014. It was just in the last couple of years updated. So, and it becomes a nice way to reach out to new members and to really, again, provide the resources that at least members who are in that realm are looking for, and they want to be able to do it. And then if you want to talk to people who wrote it, they're in the division. It's not even just, oh, well, somebody wrote this, but those are all contributors. So it's a nice way to have those continued connections. I really am excited to be part of the Divisions Council as the chair now. It also has service on the board of directors, which is an interesting and new experience as well. So look for learning more in this next path of AP leadership, and uh, appreciate the chance to hear from all of you and hopefully bring more in. So with that, I will turn it over to Brianne.
Thank you, Deborah. All right, Brianne, you are up.
All right, good evening. We're powering through. So Brianne Kennedy, I hail from Minnesota and always used to get made fun of when I did roll call at the CPC, especially when I said Idaho. So, uh, thank you, Caroline, for that amazing bio, all those amazing bios. Those were very beautiful and customized. I really appreciate the extra effort. I don't know if you used AI or if you wrote those all from scratch, maybe a combo. Those
A
were
little
lovely.
of both, yeah.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you for that. So what led me to APA leadership? In really all the roles that I've had, it's been the same thing, which is a very strong desire to make change and to undo unjust systems. And so I have a little bit different of a why in the way that I wasn't really seeking to give back, so to speak. I was seeking to utilize positions of power to systems change. And that has really formulated my journey. I got involved in the state chapter because I wanted it to be more fun. I thought the best way to get more members is to have people have a good time, inspire bold leadership, energize them. We sit at council meetings and public hearings, and it can be so demoralizing. And so when we go to conference or we go to a program or we even have a committee meeting, we are there to get energized and to get rejuvenated. And so that was my why. I jumped pretty much right into president of Minnesota chapter because I'm like, go big or go home. Why spend 8 years working my way up? It's not exactly a high competition, right? Like they're looking for volunteers. They're looking for people to stand up and say, yeah, I'll be the president. And I think I ran unopposed. I'd never been on the board, but I was like, where am I going to make the most change? Where am I going to make the biggest difference? It's going to be at the helm. And so we we had our highest conference attendance ever. At least to date. I haven't been tracking the conference attendance since then, but I think it's maybe ever. And so I really was able to get people excited, energized, and inspire leadership and get people together. And so really that was my motivation was to encourage more participation, more inclusion. And so then as chapter president, you attend the national CPC, the Chapter President's Council. And that's where I kind of discovered the Women in Planning Division because I was in person at the National Planning Conference. And like Corinne said, there were a little over 100 members. It was a very demoralizing business meeting. And it was clear they needed energy and passion and excitement. And so I was like, I can do that. I can be there. I can step up. But we're gonna do things. We're gonna accomplish things and get things done and drive change. And so I was on the CPC executive committee as well, XCOM. And there I had a chance to really dig into things related to how we cultivate leaders, how we cultivate diversity in leadership, and also increasing representation on the CPC chapter presidents. And we had some really, really hard meetings where people were really racist and disrespectful, and we had to call it out. And that's why I got involved because I'm like, there are things that need to be said in groups, and sometimes it's scary to say those things, and I will say those things. And I will augment the voices of the other people who are saying those things. I will back people up. And so that was at CPC. And then of course, Women in Planning Division, that has been my experience too, with all of the leaders in the division and so many of the division members. They want to be there for each other to augment and support the hard things that need to be said out loud, that take courage to say that sometimes fall on deaf ears. So then you need that energy, you need that reassurance and that support to keep saying the thing, even if you get squashed. And so systems change has always been my why. And APA is a system. It's a system, just like education or the economy or, any other system that rules and drives our lives. APA in and of itself is a system. And so that I think was the thing that surprised me the most is it's a machine. And the only way to change a system is to disrupt it. And generally, systems don't like to be disrupted. And so it's not exactly fun work. And often it feels very, it can feel very hopeless or dejecting, but there are things that change. And now that it's been 20 years of my career and 15 years of APA, I am seeing that incremental pivot of systems change. And just some examples are when you look at the salary survey data, like the salaries, we still have gender gaps in salaries, but it's decreasing, and it's decreasing for certain age groups, especially. We still don't have gender parity or racial parity in the FAICP, but talking about it and getting involved and doing the presentations and sharing the data is what makes those numbers better now. And looking at the classes, they're more and more diverse, gender-wise especially, but increasingly racially diverse as well. So even though it sometimes feels like we're falling on deaf ears, it matters. And so that's really always been my drive. Is to do the work that matters, even when it sucks, Caroline. Like, and even when it feels like you're against headwinds, and to bring others along who are allies and advocates who are in positions of power. In particular, Erin and her leadership as the president, right? Like I've been able to work closely with her for a long time. And so leveraging other people's power and position too, that is also part of being a leader of APA is that camaraderie and those leaders that are in those positions and becoming friends with them, building relationships. So that's the advice I would have. If someone wants to get involved and they want to make a difference and they want to see things change and improve, particularly for those who are underrepresented, show up and show interest and raise your hand, right? Like, I'll do it because believe it or not, chapter president isn't super competitive. So, like, if you say, I'll do it, or often division chair, like, that's a hard job. It's not every day that there are 10 people raising their hand for it. So, asking questions of the people who you see in those roles, raising your hand, saying, I'll do it. And then finally, say the thing that needs to be said. Don't be afraid. We're volunteers. What are we gonna get fired? Um, we might. I do know a couple people, volunteers who were very afraid of getting fired from their volunteer role. I'm like, okay, all right. But say the things that need to be said, because that's why we're there. And yeah, just if you want to make change, if you want to make a difference, have some resilience and keep up at it and keep raising your hand for those leadership roles. Thanks.
Thank you, Brianne. Shanita.
Okay. Thank you, Carolyn. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Shanita McConis, and I am in Washington, D.C. Again, I work with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and our headquarters is here in the Capitol. What APA leadership role I'm in currently is chair of Federal Planning Division. I'm actually in my second term as chair. And who or what led me into this role? I actually started out volunteering with the Federal Planning Division. We have a huge annual conference, and part of that conference is awards. And so my staff at the time, I was a chief in Europe, working with the Europe district, and we would always submit for these awards. And I decided I'm going to volunteer and be a juror, and I'm going to support. And because I know it's a lot of effort, and I'm appreciative of having the opportunity to recognize federal work and federal leaders. So I decided to volunteer. After volunteering, so my actual first time going to a national planning conference was in 2019 in San Francisco. The Federal Planning Division had its conference kind of back to back with the national conference. And I was very motivated by what I learned and getting a chance to meet planners all across from different sectors. So used to that bubble of federal planning because it's a very tight-knit community. If you're in federal planning, you know all the planners. So going to a conference is just like a homecoming. You know, you get a chance to see everyone that you work with and that you've known from different roles and different times that you've had a chance to work. But I was there at that conference, and the current chair of Federal Planning Division said, "Hey, you know, I think I want to have a chance to have a beer with you after the sessions today." And that conversation, or should I say, being volunteered, like, "Hey, you're a really great leader. It's the end of my term, and I think you should run." And he gave me a sales pitch, and I was sold by the end of the first beer. um, but it was a great opportunity for me to give back to the community, to serve. So I was already into my senior level of management and program facilitation across master planning for USACE. And so I thought, yeah, why not? Let's serve, let's share some ideas, because I always have ideas about ways to improve things. And it was opportunity to, because I only really see men in those leadership roles, So it was also an opportunity to be a woman as a chair and be an example for some of the other young planners that we have. So we do have emerging federal planners that we mentor and guide. What surprised me about APA leadership was how vast the organization is. I was completely green. I had no idea about the structure of DC Council, of APA, how the staff interacts with the different levels of leadership, even chapters. It wasn't until after I attended that first conference that I committed to actually pursuing my AICP. So I got my AICP in 2020. So it's just an opportunity to follow your passion. And I would say that's my first advice to everyone is follow your passion. If you have an idea, offer it. If you want to pursue it, you need to speak up and say, hey, I really think this will work for our group. I really have this interest. And I assure you that someone will give you the support. They'll help you run with your idea and give you the room to execute it. For many of us, it's sometimes, and you probably have heard this, that there's been doubts about your capacity or leadership. And I would say start with doubting your doubts. You have unique tools, you have unique perspective, you have experience that no one else has. So doubt your doubts and trust your instincts and trust your judgment. I assure you that your unique perspective is needed within your organization at whatever level. So start with wherever you are. If it's just like I did, start by volunteering on a committee or offering a suggestion, or go right for the gusto and run for chair. You can do it. You observed, you participated, you will figure it out along the way. And you will have the DC Council to give orientations, to share information. You'll have partnerships with your other leaders because this is a network. So there's so much to gain from connecting with this community and offering your insights. That's how organizations grow. We're an association full of volunteers. And so only way for that blood work to continue is for someone to step up and say, I can fill that void. I can provide best service. Even if you want to change directions, you don't have to follow the same routine. You don't have to do exactly what the person before you did. You're going to accomplish your own goals and objectives by setting whatever strategic plan that you want to do. So I think for me, the biggest thing is just to be willing. If you're willing, there's someone that will find a role for you. You can start by reaching out to a trusted confidant or someone within your chapter, your division, say, hey, I've really been thinking about this. What advice do you have? And I'm sure that they'll say, oh, you're interested? Okay, come on, let me invite you to this meeting. Let me introduce you to this person. And it will just be a catalyst for a long-term career or life within service to the community. Because I think we're all passionate about planning and about changing our communities and environment. And this is one way that you can do it. So my North Star is service. And I believe that is true for every volunteer. What are my future APA leadership plans? I haven't nailed them down, but I would be interested in continuing in service after my 2-year term. So if that's supporting Divisions Council or some other advisory group, because as chair, I've had the opportunity to serve on the Component Collaboration Advisory Group, working directly with APA staff leadership and DC Council. So I'll definitely be somewhere supporting, and definitely, of course, supporting the different divisions that I'm in. So Women in Planning Division, learning from Carolyn, sharing together as chairs and getting a chance to see her present at the National Planning Conference and other women. That's also encouraged me as well. So I look to continue to be among other planners and women of this caliber. So I will continue to find a way to do that. And I think that's all that I have for today. Unless you have
Thank
questions
you
for me.
so much. I appreciate it. Last but not least, Julia.
Hello. Well, okay. So everyone has given really amazing advice. I'm really impressed. I'm really honored to be included in this group of incredible women leaders, who are making history as we speak. So, I just wanted to add a few things. I know we only have a little bit of time left. So, Julia Leigh Johnston, I am currently the past chair of the APA Chapter President's Council, and I'm also the Sacramento Division Director for the Sacramento Valley section. California has sections, and the sections have divisions. So I came up through the Sacramento Valley section. That was really where I started, and have come up through the section to the chapter. I was California chapter president, and then chair of the CPC. But my first involvement with APA was in graduate school. And I really went back to planning school because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to address some of the things that I thought were wrong in the world, similar to Brianne. And I felt like planning provided that system to help me do that. And I'm a firm believer, having grown up in a family of volunteers who were deeply involved in the community, that you can accomplish so much more in community than you can by yourself. So I felt immediately attracted to APA, the community in APA, the shared values in APA. I feel like so many of us share the same values of wanting to have an impact. I mean, you've heard us all talking, and you can hear our values coming through. And there's so many of them are shared. And so I always have felt very much at home in APA with my beliefs. And I really strongly believe, I would say, that planners can be agents for change, but also stewards for democracy. That we can be leaders in our communities, that we can bridge some of the challenges or some of the really uncomfortable issues that we're facing now. And I also believe that you can be a leader from every level. So I run CalCog's Leadership Development Program. CalCog is an association for regional governments, RTPAs, COGs, and MPOs. And I just graduated my 8th class yesterday. And so I tell them all the time, you can lead from any level. Sac Valley section, we have 2 leadership programs for both young planners, but also for our rural planners. And you don't have to wait. You don't have to have a specific title. You can jump right in. And I think you've heard all these folks saying, we all have a problem with saying no, obviously. And I do think, though, that that's part of what's made me successful. It's just saying yes, 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 yes. Starting where you can, getting your foot in the door, doing what needs to get done. And I think that helps you kind of get started. And I do think, though, that one of the things that helps you lead at any level is having a vision, having an idea of what you want to accomplish, who you are, where you want to go, being able to articulate that vision to inspire others. I also think that, and maybe I don't know if this is because I'm a woman or because though I do think the model for leadership is changing, but leading from not having to be out in front, inspiring others to share the vision with you. It's not about telling people what to do or convincing them to do it. It's about inspiring people and finding that common vision. And again, I feel like that in APA, a lot of us share that common vision. So that's really all that I want to say right now. I do think that I'm I'm a little bit older than most of the folks on this call. And so my next goal is really to kind of get out of the way. I want to continue to support the next generation of leaders, but I also, being in the last year of the baby boom generation, I waited a long time to get my shot, and I don't think that the next generation of leaders should have to wait that long to be able to start shaping the organization to meet their needs. So that's it. Hey, and I'm like everybody else here, I'm happy to talk to anybody. I've done a bunch of different things and been in a bunch of different positions. So always happy to talk to anyone who's interested in a leadership position. I want to be on your team.
Thank you, Julia. And thank you to all of our panelists. We had so much great information that I'm actually going to just skip over our Q&A. But if you have questions, emails here. This will come right to me so I can see it. I'll also encourage anyone listening, this is a really great time of year to start thinking about leadership positions. APA's consolidated elections come up just around the corner. So a lot of divisions and chapters are starting to slate candidates. So if you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. This is your sign. Send an email, get involved, even if you're like maybe not a leadership position, I just want to volunteer for something. I don't think there's a group in APA or APA itself that would turn down any sort of volunteer help. Or if you just have an idea, you want to share something. I'll also encourage you, the Women in Planning Division is building what we're calling an Untold Stories archive. It's a digital archive of women in planning and sharing their stories. We have a really great format where you can submit a questionnaire. This is not something you don't need to wait till the end of your career or lifetime to submit a story. We're collecting all stories from everyone. So if you want to scan that, you can both visit the archive and think about submitting a story or share it with a woman whose story needs to be told. But yeah, I think just this was super inspiring. I'm so glad we have this recorded and we can share it. And I'm excited for others to hear this and feel as excited about as I am about all of like the amazing energy and opportunities that are out there. And I'm so grateful to all of you for sharing your time and so grateful that all of you are a part of my network. And I'm looking forward to our national conference and other opportunities where I'll get to see all of you. But yeah, so again, just thank you so much. I appreciate you all. And I hope everybody has a super great rest of their Thursday night. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline.
Thanks, Caroline.
Thanks all.
Bye, everybody. Great to see you all.
Yes, you too. Take care. Thank you.
You in Detroit.
Yay.
Yeah.